Hello, Valerie.
Hi.
So it is almost 10 a.m. in LA.
It's morning for
And
you. It's afternoon for me.
yes, are you having a good day?
Yeah. I took the day off so I could sit in my house and do this. I couldn't possibly do it at work. There's too much chaos, and I
Ah,
share an office with one person, and yeah, it just wouldn't work.
got it. Well, we've got all sorts of people on. Let's see, Eugene from Luxembourg, hello, and Carmina from LA, Heather from Connecticut, Marina from the Los Angeles area, Marco from Croatia. Hi, guys. And Drew from Seattle and Arnold from Costa Rica. Adrian from SoCal, Russell from LA, Victoria, she's from Portugal, and Michael, my partner. He says, good morning from the next room over because he's here.
Hi, Michael.
Reggie from the Philippines. Jason from Cupertino. You guys don't even need to tell me where you're from. I know most of you already.
Yeah.
Eric is in Chinatown. Let's see, in Los Angeles. Bryant's from Jacksonville, Florida. Hello, guys. Tracy from North Dakota. Thank you for letting us know where you're calling in from. Valerie is calling in from Florida. So she is we're covering both coasts today. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. Great. And it's nice to see that some questions are coming in. If you will let everyone know, we're going to get started with Art Director Valerie Sebring. Please use the share button underneath our video feeds here and let everyone know that we're getting started. I see some tweets already that people are letting everyone know. Also, if you have any questions, please use the questions and answers tab below and we will answer them in an orderly fashion. Not that, we don't appreciate chaos here, but, Yes, great. Thank you from Tulsa. Thank you guys for joining us. Yes.
All over.
I know. Well, we're going to get started. I am Rachel from TypeEd. Welcome to, Drew says controlled chaos. Welcome to Typography Dojo. Thanks for joining us today. I am joined by Editorial Art Director Val Sebring. Hello, Valerie. How are you doing?
I'm great.
Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yes. I have about 20 years experience, which means I'm old. Not really. My brain is young, but I've been doing editorial for about, 10 years, I guess. 9 or 10 years. Before that, I was actually doing ads. So I've had a little bit of smattering of everything over the years, and it's been a really great experience. Currently, a graphic designer. I don't have to be totally in charge. I'm kind of playing around now, getting to design a lot. But I was an art director for Worth and Watch Journal for 7 years. So.
Right. And so how I found you was actually because Michael and I are such huge fans of Worth magazine, and I'm just going to show a couple issues here. Mm-hmm. They're older issues, but they're all the issues that you have worked on. And yes. We're just delighted to have you on today. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So we're going to get started. Give me a second here to get our screen up. Okay, you guys ready? We're going to get started here. All right, Val. So we're ready to hear your presentation.
Okay.
Thank you.
I wanted to start with, where I started, I guess. I liked hearing other people tell their story of where they came from and how they got to where they are. So I thought it was important to see that because that's where you learn. Good type design comes from observation and practice. I've been doing this a long time. I pay attention to the details. I've studied a lot of different design over the years, and I practice it almost every day. My first memorable experience working with type when I was building ads at the Miami New Times. Miami New Times, most people should be kind of familiar with alternative weeklies. There's The Voice, there's LA Weekly. You don't see them a whole lot anymore, but these covers here were done by my husband, Dean Sebring, and he was the editorial art director there. at the time. You can see with the alternative weeklies, there's a lot of design freedom, and the content can just be really fun and bold, and so can your design. But I started off at New Times building ads. And this is not Miami New Times ads. I think this is the Voice, or the Village Voice. I pulled it offline. But it's the same concept, the same down and dirty, putting information in tiny spaces. But when you're doing this, you can have a wide variety of clients, like smoothie shops and nightclubs and spas. So you get to experiment with a lot of different themes and a lot of different fonts. And the problem is there's too many fonts and too many bad fonts. If you've been working at a company that's been around for a while, it means over the years I've collected a ridiculous amount of fonts. If you're not in a position to clean up the font situation, I suggest making a printed library of all the good ones, the ones that you'll be using. It'll eventually be a big time saver, especially if you have to design something up really quick. I just made a font library at the Polo Club, and I've been there for 2 years, so I know it's hard to find the time to go through them all. But if you ever have downtime, I suggest doing it. Don't get on the internet, make a font library. You can do it little by little, and it makes your job easier. So I group them into like text and display, sans serif and serif, retros, scripts, and handwritten fonts. And I even have a kid font category because we do a lot of kids stuff. And if you're designing for print, to see all the fonts printed on paper for some reason is much different than seeing them on the screen. I mean, if you're designing for digital, of course you want to see them on the screen, but for print, it's really good to see them all printed out. Now, building all these ads might seem like a nightmare, but it was actually good practice at organizing information. What type needs to be bigger and bolder, and showing the client that not everything, making everything bold doesn't necessarily make it stand out more. Clients want to put a novel into an eighth of a page, but obviously you can't do that. You have to show them, what looks best, and sometimes edit the information. And most of them were black and white, so you're forced to design with the type. You learn to experiment with the different weights and styles to get the message across. So after the Miami New Times, I ended up at Street Weekly. It was the Miami Herald's alternative weekly. They created it to be competitive with Miami New Times. And I had left already, and someone had called me up and asked me to come along. And since I had been building ads, for 2 years at Miami New Times, they called me up to I did everything at the Street, though. I did this is a couple of ads from their special issue. They promoted several special issues throughout the year. And it's kind of embarrassing to show this now because I would do everything differently. But it's important, I think, to show how you can evolve in a place and really start to play. And a place like this, where there's lots of freedom, gives you opportunities to play around. And
Valerie, we agree. Everyone in the chat bar is saying yes, they agree. So.
And here's a couple of more. The sports issue. The sports issue. It was showcasing intramural sports, extreme sports, and other fitness activities in South Florida. So I wanted to be a little playful. So I used different sizes and just messed it up a little bit. Grunge was really big back then. And back then, what we did to get the grunge factor was we would just print out whatever type that you had, and you'd photocopy it like, I don't know how many times till you got a good deteriorated look, And that's what I pretty much did with the sports issue logo. And True Confessions was a calling for story submissions from readers, real life stories that they could publish in the magazine. I thought adding the anonymous ransom note text worked well here. You just have to find enough variety, I think, in style and color to pull it off. I spent about 5 years with alternative weeklies before I left, and I started freelancing from home. Excuse me, I'm just taking a drink. And soon after I left to work from home, so did Dean. Dean worked for New Times for 10 years, I think. And he just decided to do something different. Excuse me. So together, we started a design firm. We did a little bit of everything from websites and brochures, and we had a few clients that we created magazines and custom publications for. So this is really where my editorial design begins. Oh. Sorry, I'm just going to take a drink here.
Not a problem. Take your time.
So telling a story with type. Dean had been doing editorial design every week at New Times for 10 years, so he was the only one with really editorial design experience. And he's pretty much self-taught, you know. We didn't have type ed. And he was self-taught, and I learned from him. So I remember Dean buying every David Carson book that came out because he loved his typography. Here are a couple of bits that I pulled from his book, Second Sight. When working at New Times, this kind of type design was really inspiring because he really broke the rules, you know. And it was exciting to see that break from every common, everyday design work. Here's another example of some of the stuff in his book. And this, I think, was a real influence with the New Times stuff. At our company, though, we started getting corporate real estate and fashion clients. So there was a shift in style for both of us. We had to study luxury, high-end design, not just look at the local competition, but we looked beyond that. You know, we were always referencing top designs in print and HAL and SPD. And Dean eventually came up with his own magazine that he wanted to start called BPD, Blueprint Directory. It's a design, art, and architecture magazine. Miami's culture is so rich with art and design. He wanted to create a well-designed magazine for designers. So an editorial design was a great opportunity to explore type design. For me, an article's opening spread is like an artist's playground. The rules don't really have to apply. And if I were a type designer, I'd probably create a custom font for each feature. But I've never had the patience or the craftsmanship for that. I have an illustrator's mind where I have an idea in my head and I can sketch it out, but I don't have the will to perfect it by hand. I mean, it's amazing what these type designers do, that they can just hand draw these things and bring them to almost perfection before they become digital. I just have all this experience with the digital tools, and I know I can get there faster that way. And there's so many fonts to start from. You know, there's so many great fonts out there. I've always tried to integrate type into the design so it takes on the mood and the emotion or the environment of the story, so that the words are communicating a feeling before you really even read them. With a lot of the architecture and interior design and furniture design feature articles that you'll see here, it was usually pretty easy to bring the aesthetics of the designer style into the type of each story. Dean and I eventually we ended up at Sandow. And that's where I started working on Worth and Watch Journal. Now Worth magazine is one of the most challenging magazines to design. And in fact, about 3 or 4 years of designing financial articles, I'm tired of it, But what was great about Worth, and still is for the people who are still there working on it, is it's a really talented team. Michael and Pam Chevalier joined us at Sandow, and they were both art directors at New Times too. So when you're working in an environment where you have artists who love design, are always pushing themselves to do better, and you become better yourself, Some might call that competitive, but it doesn't feel like that any of us are trying to out-design each other. It's just more like we're inspired by each other. And it's just, I think that keeps you going. And that keeps you in that situation when you're in a good culture, a design culture there. I think Dean and Michael worked on the latest redesign of Worth. It's always being reinvented. Here are some, these are some of mine. There's so much, you know, it's been around for years, and it was so hard to go through all this stuff and decide what to show, but
I bet.
yeah. I mean, you know, I guess all clients eventually begin to feel stale, even if it's good design. So I think that's when you have to just step back and take a look at it with new eyes, you know. I mean, we're artists, and it's our job to make the same old thing look awesome and different every time. So you have to find something unique about each story and create a unique visual experience. And sadly, I think that's what's missing from online content today, but I'm determined to find a way. We'll make it work. The Believer. The Believer, the portrait was pretty standard. It was an office setting. It was kind of blah. So what makes the story unique, and how can I draw somebody in to read about this guy, right? The Believer was about an investment firm that believed in transparency and individual and freedom of investment freedom. They wanted their clients to invest in their own interests, not the interest of the firm. It was like an investment firm with a moral conscience, right? Wanted to do the right thing for the client, but still make money. So for me, the title of it, The Believer, evoked sort of a religious, moral tone, someone who's unwavering faith and conviction to better the world and everyone in it, you know. And I love the flavor of the old biblical text and all the ancient Celtic type, you know, that you've seen in the ancient books. So I started doing some research. You know, you look up these things and see what's out there.
Wow.
But this is a financial article, right? I mean, I can't make this look like a Bible page. It's important to stay with the clean, modern brand of Worth. So I start with the basic font. You see it everywhere. Sometimes it's Old English, sometimes it's Germany. So I start with that, and it obviously needs some flair. It needs some dimension that the ancient samples that I found had, but not too much. I knew I wanted to use embellishments like the scrolls to use throughout the article and go with the pull quotes. So I placed the text on a curve to make it more organic. I wanted to pick up some of the texture for the feel of the font, but not too fancy like the crazy ones that, you know, right here. What I ended up adding some modern straight lines for the fill instead of, you know, really ornate, swirly looking things. I wanted to just keep it a little modern. And I added the thick black drop shadow for some contrast, some three-dimensional. And adding some of the thickness to the embellishments, I think, was a good way to integrate the type into the art itself. I worked the dot of the eye into the embellishments. So a lot of this was me just freehand drawing with the pen tool, you know, just to work it into the font that was already there. And this design is entirely black and white. And most of my designs start off black and white because it forces you to really design with the text without using color as a crutch, you know. And when it's all done, it didn't really even need color. I think I added a little faded tint in the background to give it an aged, you know, it gives it a little depth if you add a little color to it. Fishing for the future. This is another example of using the headline to draw you in to tell the story. The photo here was great, but not a horizontal. So the other side of the spread had to echo the energy and the lifestyle that the photo had. These people who spend a big part of their life on a boat. I immediately get the idea to use the fishing line for the headline because the article is about fly fishing, which is a really thick fishing line. It's not the thin clear line that most people use. But the challenge was making it look real and not too cheesy. And again, I'm not a type designer, so I know I can't freehand draw this. So what I do is I find a script font that was made with a continuous line, because my fishing line can't break, it has to look real. I can't remember what font it was. It was some old-fashioned brush script that I would never use anywhere, but it had the flow, the continuous line that I needed to trace with the pen tool. And in the end, I ended up having to use 2 lines. That's 2 lines. And I had to stray away from the original font slightly, like if you see in the loop of the T in future, to keep it flowing. And then I had to come back across to cross the T. And using the water droplets to dot the I's worked out nicely, because I wasn't going to do it with the lines. I'm glad I figured that out. And you can see, well, if you go to the next spread over to the right, use the same fishing line to wrap around the pull quotes. It carries through the design, and also the water droplets. If you were to look close at those water droplets, I did try to give it an effect of it being bubbled up with water. You can't really tell probably on the screen because it's kind of small. Feature makers. When designing feature articles, photography and illustration is the easiest way to draw a reader in. But when you have very little or not the greatest quality art, which is what happens a lot with Worth, you have to rely on type to create the mood and carry the theme throughout the article. The Future Makers article highlighted 12 innovative minds in technology and entertainment. And to blend the idea of technology and entertainment, my idea was to create sort of a sci-fi looking movie poster. I chose a techie font and I gave it a big screen theater treatment. And this stylized FM on the lead also gave me an icon to use throughout the article for each, to lead into each profile, and the 3D treatment I also used as well throughout the article to make it cohesive throughout. This spread was from Worth's Bespoke issue. Dean found this spiral graphic font that was really detailed and evoked the detail that goes into a bespoke product, which is about custom design and using fine materials. And here's the bee up close.
Wow.
And this, and isn't it? It's, I mean, she has the whole alphabet, and the font's available for download at roxanawax.com, and it's free.
Oh
Freeware.
gosh.
She's just giving it away. So, so Roxana Wax, that's ROXANAWAX. Here's another article where we use the bee again. It was used as this icon throughout the issue when we had an article that was about the bespoke products. And then the Worth covers for that issue, the cover illustrator was able to use the same spirograph style, which really brought the whole issue together. Next we have Watch Journal. The challenge with Watch Journal is there's watches and more watches and more watches, and it never stops. And these articles often had recurring themes and recurring watch brands. So how am I going to show something different every time? It's also very challenging. When the story is about a product, I often brought out the details of the product and put it into the type, much like in some of the BPD when I tried to incorporate the architects and designers' style into the type. The details in these watches is what makes each watch story unique. In Mixmaster, the design of the watch hands was one of its distinguishing features. They took an old watch and reinvented it, for today. So I used the same delicate font that looks like it could live in the same environment, could even be on the watch. And Ladies Watch use a similar approach. The font is very feminine, and picks up on the style that is in some of the watches mentioned on the following spreads. You can see that one spread to the right. On the watch band, it has the, not the watch band, the watch face. You can see the very bold Roman numerals. And I just tried to bring that feel back into the lead. On this spread, I decided to lead with the racing watch as a sports watch article. And thinking of how type is used in racing, I could have done a number of things, like, you know, type you might see on a racing car or on a shirt or something. Just decided to go with the type that you find on your tires. To me, this was something I hadn't seen before, and the tread of the rubber reflects back to the watch band on the right. And this was another sports watch theme, same theme, but treated completely differently. The headline, Gear Up, just seemed to have attitude, and these watches were supposed to hang in there through your rugged outdoor play. So I thought of mudslinging, sweat slinging, water slinging for the dive watches, and I decided to use very graphic splats. So the text here had to be really bold, really simple, and be able to stand out amongst all these splats. I think the hyphenated word just happened while enlarging the text, but it had a nice vertical structure. And when you're creating a layout with energy and a text graphics like this, I think your type can be a little unconventional and you can get away with it. And once you get past that opening spread or headline, there are a lot of different formats and rules and flowing text. When you have a large amount of content, text needs structure to be legible and easy to follow. Watch Journal often had these articles with layers of information, which brings me to the next focus, designing information. Communicating complex information with type. 1 second, take a drink.
Okay, then while you're drinking, I'm going to say that the work is so beautiful.
Oh.
We're getting like comments in the chat bar. I just love the details that you're putting in, that work with the concept.
I mean, maybe we had a little more time when you're dealing with editorial. I don't know what it's like in an agency environment and stuff, but when you're given some time to really think about it and really try to make a piece of art with it and not just put type on a page, you know, I mean, I think that's what really makes the difference. And like I said, I would get discouraged and get tired of it and, you know, get frustrated, but I think you just have to get out. You have to get out of your room, or you have to go get some inspiration, you know? You get stuck in these little offices and you don't want to do anything. So I think that's what it is. Sometimes I would just go sit outside and think, you know? I like to be outside, so you got to find what works for you. Maybe it's just music. Sometimes just putting on music is helpful. Anyway, what was it? Designing information. In my experience, I've identified 3 types of content. There's feature articles, which we were just looking at. It's usually based on a 2-column or 3-column grid, sometimes 4. Then there's product information, like the Gear Up article we just saw, and listing information. So with product information, you can pretty much break this down into 3 parts as well. You have your lead in, your main idea. This is the main theme that's always going to be larger and more dominant so that the reader goes to it first. And I really had to make it orange here to compete with all the splats. And then next you have your product information. This is where you'll have the descriptions and you position it usually next to the product. And that's another one down there. The little orange example bubble helps also lead your eye into that text. And then you have the details and the fun facts, which needs to be said a little differently as well. And, you know, a lot of this content is the same as online content. People don't realize how much magazine content and web content are really the same. The information's still broken down the same. So the rules for fonts really apply in the same way. The homepage of a website is just a big, you know, the list, the header navigation is just a table of contents, and then you'll have your features highlighted, and it's sort of the same, and you could use the same principles for font design that way. If you look here, I just pulled them out. So they're on the page together to see how they work together. I mean, the one on the top is Helvetica. I think depth perception might be thin. And body copy there is GeoGrotesque. We use that a lot in Watch Journal. It was a common Watch Journal font. Okay. The Road Warriors article is another product article. We make it look like features, but they're really just product information. The curator section of Worth was the product section, and it had to have a whole different set of fonts to set it apart from the financial part of the magazine. So if you see here, this is, again, main idea. This is your product information. Goes next to that car. This is the details. They said a little differently. And the product information for the car on the right, leading in with the number 2. The number in the 1 and 2 are really what are supposed to draw you to those products. And then the details and fun facts. And if you look here, you'll see them all together and how they work together.
Great.
I think it's good to almost design this in this fashion first. You know, get things that work together on the blank page and then incorporate it. I don't think Dean did that, but he's an organic person. He works in his own way. But I'm very methodical and structured, and so I would probably, you know, I think this way first and work backward.
So what you're saying is to plan your hierarchy and to look at all the elements together to make sure they work before you lay them out.
I think that would be the smartest way. Not everybody works that way, though. You know, some people are just aesthetically, they just work, and Dean does. But, you know, he's but he's kind of a genius at it. He just does it. I have to think everything through. I'm too analytical, too literal and analytical.
We are too.
Let's see, what's next? Wealth Advisors. The Wealth Advisor was an advertising section in Worth as well that needed to have a whole different set of fonts so that it looked different than the rest of the magazine. But the fonts still needed to be in keeping with the Worth brand. Let's see here. So here are your products. Okay, on the left, on the left-hand side, what you really have is an article, basically. They have these guys write their articles, and there's 3 columns of text there. And you'll know, I mean, normally we want to put a pull quote or something in there to break up all of that copy. But because this is advertiser-driven, and you can't tell them what to do, and you can't cut their copy, we had to find another way to break up all of that gray text. So we use the bold orangey brown style throughout. You have to read it, find an interesting point to pull out, and do it in a good spot too, so that it wasn't so gray. And then on the right is where you really have your product person. The person is your product, and Justin, that's his main idea. That's why it's big and black and to draw you in. And then the product details underneath. That's all the stats, the stuff you might want to know, might not want to know. So it's there, but not so, it doesn't have to be as bold and big. This is also product information, but this is something we wanted to pull out to give it emphasis. It's really a call to action and how to reach Justin. And even though it could have gone down there by the email, they really wanted something to stand out that made you say, hey, I want to talk to this guy. And then we have our little details and fun facts down there with the, if I weren't a wealth advisor, I'd be a cook or something. So it's supposed to make you feel a little bit warmer about these, financial guys and really get to know them personally, which is also why you need your how to reach up there with it. It's a more personal touch. Here's them all pulled out together. Really a lot of fonts going on here, but so much information and different types of information. Should I consider the question at the top and the pull quote are the same font and the how to reach are the same font, though just different styles of it. Well, actually how to reach and the question are the same, but use the italics for the quote. And on the left, all the about stuff is Helvetica. Just straight up information. And then our little details down the what makes a good client part, the little details were done in DIN. So we often use DIN and Helvetica at the same time. I don't know why it works because they're not really the same, but it's just, they're easy to read, I think. We use that a lot. And then there is listing information. First, in listing information, we had a lot of list and worth. You'll have your item name where you need to use a strong face, or maybe a larger font to lead in the listing. A lot of times we would use the numbers to lead in listing. Number 1, number 2. Did that a lot to help because you can't make, a font super huge all the time. You have space constraints, but and then there's the item description that goes underneath whatever your product name is, or your listing name. It's not really a product, it's a list. And then contact details. So it's pretty much like a product information. You just pretty much break it down into 3 parts again. It becomes very formulaic to me. Here is top 10 list for worth. We always have these going on. This is for power lunches. And sometimes when you have all of this information, you have to make a custom grid to fit it. Running this list in the traditional columns would have been kind of challenging to follow. So we have to break it up.
And it looks like the word counts vary. It's not the same on each listing.
Exactly. So if you had running copy, it would just be, that's exactly why we had to break it up like this. And you want to use photos. Got to have photos. Here it is up close so you can see a little bit. It's just, add the words address and cost. They could have been bold and not italic, and then the address could have been italic. It doesn't really matter as long as it's set apart, I think, and it's distinguished in some way. There are many ways to do these types of things. And like I said, we use the numbers a lot. This is another list. It was like a feature list, though. We had a lot of feature lists. And the little stock illustrations couldn't carry the design, so the type had to be really powerful. And using the age texture with the 3D effect and this dramatic cast shadow from the 3D text on the headline helps give it dimension and character of the rich, the retro style. And then, this is it up close on this is the following spread. I just blew it up so you could see, because I use the same type treatment on the main idea, like the one, drink your best wine. And then you have your details, which is the body copy. The information, which is your body copy. And then the contact information. The contact information is blue. I don't know if you could tell there. but it is set a little bit apart by the color.
Mm-hmm.
And we have art sales, another feature list. I chose to exaggerate the numbers on this one. Like I said, we use numbers a lot, but this is a art kind of article, and I thought I could have some license to be crazy here. I think the font was Numbers. It was the Numbers font, a font called Numbers, which we used a lot. And I wanted to give it dimension, though. I needed some character, so I added the drop shadow with the texture. It's similar to the paddle. We use this line texture a lot in Worth, and it helps if you start seeing that every issue, you know, the same types of details, and you can always bring that into the text. And here, I just varied the sizes a little bit, you know, just to make it a little funkier. And like you said, the text is not ever the same. And the art was never, you could never make the art the same size. Sometimes we had these tiny pieces of art that they would get from the internet, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is the only size we have to use. So you have to work with what you're given. And I think that's why Worth relies on type a lot, is that we couldn't have everything photographed or everything illustrated. You know, what kind of budget would that be? So, and with this is art that's out there, and it's being promoted as this art sale. So you have to find what you can. And like I said, you have to run it small and you have to fit it all on these pages, sometimes really playing up the type helps. Branching out. Now I am branching out from editorial design, and I'm at the Polo Club. I guess I looked for another job for a while before going to the Polo Club. There was a marketing director there that wanted to update the image. They were getting millions of dollars to redesign their club, and it really is amazing. It's like a resort. So she wanted someone to help bring a luxury feel to it, and so they did have an ad agency do the outside marketing materials. And so in looking at that, I tried to bring it into the internal marketing. So you'll see here the same, you see the dot or didot. How do you use, I don't even know how to pronounce it.
Dido, I think.
Dido, see, you're the type person. I call it different every time. I'll pronounce it different every time. So they might have used Bodoni, which is very similar, but I started using this throughout their magazine. They have a magazine, an in-house magazine, which is really a giant glorified newsletter, which is really great because I still get to do some editorial. So I used those fonts for the Polo Club magazine to create section openers and department styling, you know, to really help create the brand internally as well. And then you'll see the, with the recurring Polo events, I like to keep the same font if it works. If it works, it works. That way I'm building a recognizable brand in-house as well, that they starts to feel a little bit more luxury than just a smattering of everything. But they also have special events and special, things they want to be separated from the branding. We don't need to brand events. They need to have their own look and feel, pretty much like an editorial article would. So that's a lot of fun to work with, because you get to create a unique look that fits the mood and environment for that occasion. And when they go to these parties, they really are transformed into another place. It's amazing what they do there when they throw parties. And like, I even get to, I get to play with type. Those little black tags there with the skim milk and the regular milk. I mean, I started with just a basic handwritten font, that was really cool, but it always needs more, so I can't remember, the S is a different font, or I just blew it up and adding the little dots and the, little splashes of what might be milk, I think those little details just make it look more handmade, even though I didn't hand draw it. Same with the regular milk. I think the R was a totally different font. It's not even the same font, but I didn't like the R of the one that was there. And so you just have to play around. And I think, like I said, adding the little swashes and splashes make it look like somebody was drawing it or handwriting it. I guess that's it. I have an editorial piece there in the right corner. So I do still get to have a little fun with that. And I get to play with logos. I've actually started trying to animate type, and I'm really, new at it. So it's gonna be my next journey, is trying to animate type. And I used to work for a greeting card company, and she wanted me to design these cards with type, right? Because she has these messages already, and she just wanted to make a more modern feel. And everybody's kind of doing that already now. I mean, you see it everywhere with the text on the greeting card. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. But I said, what you really should be doing is animating the text. You should be doing e-greetings. You should be moving into the future. But she is not ready. She is just not ready. But I'm gonna start doing it anyway and see what comes of it. But that's pretty much it.
Okay, so I'll close the presentation. Thank you. Close that for you.
No problem.
Okay, so presentation's closed. You can come back here. And as you were speaking, I was just following along. So I had, had my Worth magazines.
Oh,
and
yes.
I was taking a look at what you're doing. There's so much beautiful white space on these articles, and you guys can't see it, but there's tons of guilloches, right? The little flourishes and things like that behind to make it really feel very money. And I think that the etchings also work.
Right.
So
that was the first wave of design. They redesigned it and redesigned it. But yeah,
right.
I use those all the time.
And I was mentioning, the concept being pulled throughout doesn't just happen with, the articles that you're talking about. I mean, they happen with everything that you've been doing. I mean, maybe not this one, but, and then I love some of your type pairings, the way that you are.
Right. I did that article too. Yeah.
Yeah. That you pair type faces, and it's just gorgeous. And then when you
I almost showed that one too, because it does have so many different elements to it.
You showed you showed a small snippet.
Yeah, a little snippet on one of the
pairings.
things. That's right. Yeah.
Exactly. And then just this one. So I don't want to take too much time because you have a ton of questions, but
Okay.
I just had to look for them as soon as you mentioned that. And I started going through. I'm like, I need to follow along. And this is this yours as well?
No, I didn't do that. I think Pam did that one. Yep, Pam Chevalier did that.
Oh,
like I say, we have so many talented people.
I know.
Yeah, I did that one.
Lovely work. Okay, so I'm just gonna jump to Cheryl's question really quickly, and then we'll jump to all the questions below. Cheryl says, going back to the Berman article, how do you arrive at the decision to bleed the black box and not the box below it? Do you know what she's talking about?
Yeah, I do.
If you want to sit on it, or
well, it's funny. You just do things innately. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just do it and it looks better. Maybe because it connected it to the border on the outside and it didn't feel as chunky. Because sometimes blocks can get too blocky and too chunky. And if you connect it to the border, it becomes a little bit more of a piece of the, the frame itself. It probably just felt better,
Right. I think the boxes actually start to probably segment content too much.
Yeah, so yeah.
That helps you. Okay, we're going to go down. We have a lot of questions, so I want to just, great. I'm glad to hear that helps. So, by the way, thank you for demonstrating and showing us the levels of hierarchy. That was very, very helpful. Okay, so Eric has a question. He asked, what's your experience with building or interacting with the publication's fundamental style guides? Did you develop those for Watch Journal and or Worth?
Yeah.
How is that different from designing a single article or series? Good question.
Yeah, so I didn't show a lot of the templated pages. I didn't even show because they were templated and Dean created those. He designed those. He designed the whole look basically from what each department should look like. So he does set a style and we follow those styles. And there were just, I mean, feature articles don't have to look like that. There was just certain articles you knew, and we would have a discussion before we started designing these things. What does this article need to be? And what does this article need to be? So we knew beforehand what we were going to be doing. Is it a feature article? Is it a list article? Is it a product? But some of the templated things, you just design within the template. And he does a beautiful job with templates because I hate them because they're boring after a while. And some magazines are now going to all templated design, and I think that's a mistake. I really do.
Yeah, I know that quite a few magazines actually do that.
Did I answer that?
Let's see. Did you develop those? No, yeah, you did. You did answer them actually. Okay. So Dean did develop the templates, and
right?
Then
he's a creative director, and he right. developed the whole look of the magazine.
Right, and then the single articles, you had the freedom
exactly.
to because they're more artistic. Right. Excellent. Thank you, Eric, for asking. That's very
Sometimes
nice.
It's good to have that production work where you're just flowing in copy and making things fit too, because it gives you a break. You can't be creative all the time. It's overwhelming.
It is overwhelming, but you're doing a good job of it. Rosie asks, so sorry to miss the live version of this, but I'm excited to watch the recording. Can you tell us about your body copy sans that reads so well? And how do you get the tiny caption on blue matte paper to read so clearly? For example, the leading wealth advisors section of the April issue. She obviously has your issues.
Yeah,
the tiny type on the spine is so clear. How is that even possible? Let me see here.
I have a new one around here somewhere. Hold on.
Tiny type. Let's see. And then let me see the advisor section she's talking about. Let's see here. One has the new one. Gosh, we should have had everyone get a Worth magazine to follow along today. I thought I had an advisor section here. Let's see. Yeah. So there's tiny orange type.
Yeah, so these are some of the new design. I haven't been there for 2 years, but of course Dean is my husband, so I live it anyway because it's here.
Yay.
He brings his work home. Yeah. I mean, you know what? And yeah, Dean is a member of the Itty Bitty Type Committee, and he loves to use it. Well, this is the disclaimer, and it has to be legible. And I wonder what that font is.
Let's see, you guys can see it. It's really small.
I don't know.
So that's all
Pam. Yeah. If Pam were here, she would know. I know we used Gotham Narrow for a while, and that might be it, but I don't know if it is. If they changed the font, I'll have to find out. If Pam were watching, she would know, and she could tell us.
Well, as I'm going through the magazines, your sans serif use is typically on the details and the call outs. And it's not on the
so that it's easy to read. Yes, exactly.
Right. I mean, you have them on the lists, you have them on the filter section. This is all sans serif, but it's not a lot. It's in small chunks.
Right. And it was Din and Gotham Narrow when I was there. I'm not sure what they used for these new wealth advisors, but that's a good question.
On blue matte paper. Interesting.
It might just be Gotham Narrow.
So to answer Rosie's question, my guess is because you're using it in small chunks that it's easy to read because you're not reading them in large swaths of paper.
Right. The information is broken up. That's what I was talking about before.
Right.
Sometimes you have to create a grid that just makes it easier to digest.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty funny. She says, how is that even possible? I love that question. So, Rosie, I know you're not on live, but I hope that answers your question. Okay, so Eric is asking another question. Eric says, Valerie, did you ever communicate with actual watch designers, specifically the designers of the watch's faces and numerals?
Oh, wow. No, that would have been great. They're all in Switzerland. They're all overseas. But no, we got our content directly from the editorial, the editor. She sent it. So no, we never got to do any cool stuff like that. So I would have loved to have gone there. But you get to experience it through all the images and reading about it. I mean, you really get to know about know more about watches than I'd like to.
Then you need to.
Exactly.
Then you want to know. Yeah.
But they're beautiful. The pieces of art themselves, So.
Mm-hmm. Okay, hope that helps, Eric. So no, this is the answer. I guess just for the writers.
Sorry.
Anna is asking, how many versions or ideas do you execute before you make the final decision for the article title? Or is it the first idea you have and you just go with it?
Sometimes I have an idea and I start going with it, and then we regroup as a team, and I'll show Dean, this is what I'm thinking about. But sometimes I have to get it to a certain point of design before I can sell it to him, because if it doesn't look like it's going to look good, then he's not going to. So yeah, sometimes if I have to pick one, I'll have different ideas, and then I just, knowing from experience of what works and what doesn't work, that just kind of comes with experience. In the beginning, I remember when I designed ads, I used to design 3 ads each time because I didn't know, what was going to work. So I think you just play. I think it would be a good idea if you weren't experienced at it and you didn't know which idea was going to be the best. You just rough up 3, and for me, I can start to see where it's going, and you can tell which one's going to be better. And sometimes I'd have 2 really good ones, and I'd start mocking them both up, and then I'd show it to everybody. So which one of these, should we do? And that was. It was a team, a team effort. We all looked and gave our comments, and we would make a decision based on that.
So with your experience, that's how you learn
with your experience, you learn to know what idea is not going to work, and which one is, because you've either been there and done that and thought, okay, well, that sounds like a good idea, so not really going to work. You don't have the resources or you don't have the time. It depends on how much time you have too, of what's going to work. Or what kind of art you have, what your resources are.
Of course, that's always have to be figured out. And I hope that helps. You guys keep asking more. You guys keep adding more questions. So we're going to go over a little bit. Valerie, I hope that's okay. Russell is asking, how are you able to make the body copy look like it's still on the baseline when there are so many different levels of leading and sizes between the call out numbers, titles, subheads, etc.?
Call out numbers. Well, I guess I would have to know exactly which one what he's talking about.
Russell, can you mention what you're talking about? I'll just take a look and see
which design you're talking about.
Right. Maybe something like this. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah, because there you have to break the rule. You can't stick to a baseline with that stuff. You just wouldn't look good, Well,
not a consistent baseline, but
there are. It's hard because your body copy needs to be on the baseline, but all of those, with the numbers and the headlines that lead in, they can't be, because it's a trick. How do I tell you? You have to play with it. Sometimes you'd have to do the baseline shift thing to make it look good. We don't really play by the rules too much.
Right.
I mean, you got to have the body copy on the baseline, like I said, so that that would be bad. But yeah, usually we adjust the baseline a little bit, and you just have to take certain parts off the baseline. That's it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what we teach here is that you start with the math, you start with the baseline, and then you kind of adjust. I mean, obviously your eye is so trained that you can start to, it becomes art afterwards. So
Right.
that's exactly what you're creating here with these beautiful articles. Yeah. I hope that helps, Russell. Let's see. Richard is asking, you mentioned animation. What are your plans for tackling the learning curve on that? Where are you planning to start?
YouTube.
There you go.
I mean, because like I said, the same way I have ideas for an article, like I might have an idea in my head, I see moving things in my head as well. And I just have to go online and find out how to make it do what I want it to do. And if I can't, then I find another way to have the same effect. So that's why it's a learning process for me now, because I don't know all of the tricks and I don't have the experience of knowing all of the little production details. I'm going to have to learn it as I go. If I wanted to make it do something, I'll have to search it up. And, lynda.com has, everything. If I needed to know, I could go there.
Of course. And it just like anything else, like editorial design is taking a long time, but you learn after experience. It's the same thing. Yeah. So I did notice that, now that we're talking about the animation, that the Polo Club and the Worth magazine have two way different audiences. So does that make a huge difference in terms of your clients' time invested? Like, for example, you said on the stuff for Worth, you had a while to actually concept and develop it out. The stuff that you're doing for Polo Club, is it a much faster turnaround?
Yes and no. I mean, the magazine is about the same. The magazine's actually quarterly, but the stories come up kind of last minute. They're invested in their own stories, and we're writing about them and about the club, so they're going to read it. The type has to be bigger because we're dealing with a 55 and up crowd, and you can't be an itty bitty type committee, which is kind of loses a bit of its sophistication, and it's when you're dealing with details, the type has to be big, so it's not, it's not as I don't know what the word is.
Delicate.
Yeah, delicate's a good word. But when we have the events, I might have to turn around something in a couple of days, 2 or 3 days. Sometimes they give me more time. It depends on, because the different departments have different schedules. Like the golf department gives me everything during the summer, and I get the whole season done before the season even starts. So I have a lot of time to play with their stuff. But when the events come up, the committees will change their mind on what the theme is, and you have to change at the last minute. So those can be 1 or 2 day turnarounds. But it's I think because I come fast, because I just know what works and I know what doesn't work, and I know what fonts to use. And I told you that font library has really helped me in the past couple of months, because I could just look at it and go, okay, what do I need? And I just pick one. So sometimes it just depends. The events are faster, and the editorial still, I have some time.
Good. Yeah, it just depends. Okay, so 2 more questions and then we'll finish up, if that's okay. So Mindy is asking, how do you deal with clients who want to art direct you? Also, what was the reference to that one font that was available? Was it Roxanne Wax? Thank you for your presentation. Beautiful and inspiring work.
Here, I'll type it here.
Roxanne. Okay. Great, thank you. I see here. Lisa did actually put in under that comment. She did put in lemon skates. Yeah, I can just copy and paste it. Hopefully that works. Roxana Wax lemon skate.html. Let's see. We'll put this in and see if that one works.
Oh yeah, that's the name of the font. That's it.
Oh, that's gorgeous. Oh my gosh.
I don't know why she's giving away for free. I could be charging. Anyway.
So Minnie is asking, how do you deal with clients who want to art direct you?
Yeah, I get that all the time. Luckily at Worth, we didn't have that. I mean, you did have the editorial team with their 2 cents and what they think it should be, and we'd always try to take into consideration their point of view, because they are all about the story and they know what it's about. But at the end of the day, if we disagreed, we just said, sorry, we think this is the best way to go. But we always try to accommodate them and make changes. Because even editors try to be art directors. But if they made a good point, then we're like, okay, we'll redo it. I mean, we've redone stuff before.
Right.
But we won't do it unless it's reasonable, you know. And at the Polo Club, well, the whole club is run by the members and they're your client. So, you know, you do whatever they want. You can reason with them. I remember when I was building ads, you had to show them. You have to build it one way and say, this is what you wanted. And you have to build it your way and say, this is what I think works. Okay.
Yes,
and then sometimes they still go with their stupid way, but, but at least you tried and you showed your way. Right. And that's pretty much what I try to do now. And with everybody, I say, okay, this is what you want, but this is what I think you should do.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's a great approach. You basically fight for what you feel is right, and then after a while, you just have to give up. It's not worth it, right?
Yeah, you can't fight.
Right.
It's not worth it.
So the last question is from Michael. He's asking, so when is Dean coming on for us? That's Michael.
I know.
Michael.
He's so busy.
I bet.
Because he was nervous for me to do this. And I'm like, well, you know,
I'm so sorry.
Work too. But he's so busy. I mean, he flew to New York today. He was landing right when we were starting, I think. So he's up there, you know, here and stuff to do. And you know, he just doesn't have the time. So I tried to cover some of this stuff, but I can't really speak for the whole design of the magazine, because that's truly where it came from. And Michael Chevalier, he also helped with one of the other redesigns. Was the second round or the third? But he had a lot to do with that too, and he has a great sense of typography. So I don't know if he'd ever have time.
That would be great.
And Pam as well. She did some features. She does all the features in Worth right now. She's handling Worth by herself since I left. Bless her heart. I mean, she has help, but you know, she's managing it by herself, and she does a great job.
Right. Well, I definitely want to check out the newer issues. We have mostly, I mean, our collection. My collection is mostly your work, so that's all we've been drooling over.
So, do you buy them?
Yeah, we've bought these all.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Maybe that's why you stopped. They get expensive after a while. They're expensive on the newsstand.
Yeah. Well, we definitely look at the type, but we're not going by these lists. Some of the product lists are like millions of dollars. Makes me feel poor.
Yeah, we are compared to these people. The ultra affluent, they call them.
Ah, I see. And I love how just one more note that Worth puts really a lot of money into the printing. There's always some gorgeous
spot color. Yeah.
Always a spot color. There's a spot varnish here on the cover. This one's printed with metallic. The inside is all uncoated, which is just beautiful. If you guys get a chance, definitely pick up an edition of Worth.
We don't spend a whole lot of money on artwork, though. I mean, they do send out photographers occasionally to do the profiles of people. And at one time we had a fashion section that cost a lot of money to do the fashion, and they stopped that. So, but we don't spend a whole bunch of money in the art. So I think you have room to do those nice things that make it set apart from the other financial magazines.
Right. And I think that's exactly where you got not only your talent in terms of dealing with type, but your sort of, you know, you're forced to work with it basically.
Yes, exactly.
And you did such a great job. And I love that you had that freedom. So yeah, thank you guys so much for I don't know if you can see the chat, but everyone's saying thank you so much.
But I wasn't looking at it.
That's okay. No, it's fine.
We'll have to go.
So thank you everyone for joining us today, and thank you so much, Valerie, again for sharing everything. We really appreciate it. Yes. Well, everyone have a good day and get back to work. Except Valerie.
No, I'm off.
Oh, you're done. You're finished.
I'm off.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Right. So, and then one last thing, guys, we also have a Facebook group if you want to join that and continue the conversation there. And I've also started the podcast, so please subscribe. And Valerie's talk will be in there probably in 6 months if I can get to it. No, hopefully we'll be sooner. Well, thank you again, Valerie, and I appreciate it. And we will see everyone in 2 weeks. Okay.
All right.
Have a good day. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.